There we go. Okay, welcome everybody. It's lesson number 3 of our series on still life, and we've been looking at wintry foliage and things. So the first week we did loads and loads of different drawing techniques, and then last week we were mixing up pen and watercolour. So today I've got a new artist for us to look at. And initially when I saw this artist, I thought, oh, that's a painting. But it turns out that it's a printmaker. But it doesn't mean we can't take some inspiration from the way that these things are painted. So you'll see from my email that I asked people to bring along some paints. It could be watercolour or acrylic. You probably will need acrylic white to do the highlights and things that from in the style of this artist. But I'm going to be drawing from my vase with some of the foliage that I brought along or that I've been using. And I'll show you that in a few minutes. But we'll have a look at this artist, and I'll just remind you of a couple of things we've been doing so that we can crack on. So we'll be using, so staining the paper with this sort of yellow ochre or burnt sienna sort of colour, and then using Byro pen and perhaps a rollable pen over the top as well to enhance the image that we're going to create. So we'll go over to Studio Wall. Okay, so you'll remember this from last week. We had a really lovely session where we looked at some of the work of Sarah Simblett, who does these ultra detailed and beautifully drawn pieces, looking very closely, examining and labeling all of these wonderful drawings that she makes of various flowers and seed heads and various things like that. And I mentioned as well last week that a lot of these artists will, botanical artists will lay out their things on the paper, study them, draw them, paint them, colour them, and so forth. So we use the Byro pens to draw the detail, and then watercolour over the top to add some colour. So we're going to sort of take a little bit of a different direction today. So I found an artist which I collected before we began the course, called Heron Gottlieb, and she does these paintings. Well, they're not paintings actually; they're prints. So I've got a little video. Well, it's not a video; it's just sort of a clip of how she actually works. But when I looked at these first, I thought they're either drawings or they're paintings. But I was particularly drawn to them because of how the foliage has been brought out of this brown background and things to make the details stand out and stuff. So let's just see if I can zoom in. Right one. Oh, not that one. In a second. Not that one. Zoom into this one. So go. Top. So I think what she does is she creates an etching, but I suspect there's different sorts of techniques going on here. But look how much grain and detail and things we've got in this drawing. She does paint a number of different things, but you can see here the wonderful detail in the drawing and things, and this very close inspection of the work. One of the things this artist also does is uses gold leaf and creates textured surfaces and all that sort of thing, which is fascinating, you know, the process of making these things, as well as the beauty of the drawings themselves. So I thought we'd have a go, slightly different approach, because obviously we can't all print make or do printmaking this evening, although that might be something we do a little bit later on. So we're going to have a crack at some of these techniques. So the first thing I thought, the most obvious thing, is to stain your paper with either some acrylic or some watercolor paint. And that means basically to use a flat brush and some very watered down paint, and cover the surface of the picture and then start to draw over the top. Now, I started to draw mine last week and then looked at this artist and decided that this was what we were going to do. So mine is a vase full of foliage that we've been looking at. And here are two versions or parts of the process of drawing my picture. And I wanted to show you this because sometimes I see a lot of people just going straight in with the super detail on one area of the picture before having perhaps worked out the whole of the composition. So you can see here how very kind of basic and loose this drawing is. All I've done is I've very loosely sketched out the main shapes. And I mentioned this before, you know, it gives you a bit of flexibility with changing the details, perhaps moving objects before you commit fully to the detail. So getting the composition correct and things like that. And then over here, I have the one that I've developed a little bit further. So this is stage 2, if you like, of the process that I was doing. And so I've added a few more details and decided or committed to the shapes I'm going to be putting down onto the paper and then working into with my Byro. And in fact, you can see just below that I have begun to add some of that detail with my Byro pen. So having now feeling, you know, I can feel a little bit more confident that I've got things in the right place. Sometimes that doesn't always happen, but it gives you a chance to really just feel like you can crack on with that lovely detail that we're so interested in with this project. Okay, now, I also took a photo of what I've done or what I'm drawing here today. So that's this one. So this was over at Rawn's, and I took a photo of it because I thought it'd be a good idea since we can't really see a vase standing up when I've got my camera pointed over the top. So this was the view of the vase that I started to draw just last week on Friday. Now, you might decide actually that yes, today in the class you can have your vase set up, but you know that might not always be convenient. So once you've set it up and things, you could take a photograph just like I've done. I've done this for the screen today, but it is useful if you just want to sit down and have a little go at stuff when you're perhaps even not in the lesson, things like that. You know, it's useful. I will say though that being able to see the real thing in front of you does allow you to see so much more that your camera doesn't capture. Your eyes are much better than a camera. Okay, so I'll show you what I've done for this drawing. One thing to remember as well is that if you are going to stain your paper after you've drawn it, which is what I've done, you'll find that some of the drawing might not be as clear when you go over it with the colour. So it is useful to stain the paper first, but I just did it the other way around for the convenience of using that drawing tonight since I started last week. Okay, so we'll go over to my desk. Here we go. So you remember me doing this last week, and it was really nice actually because obviously I've looked at the detail in the picture here, but I also decided that I wanted to have some sort of three-dimensional feel to the piece. So or this study at least. So you can see here how I mentioned this last lesson, how I applied the colour to the shadows. I didn't draw out any of the shadows as such. I just observed them in front of me on the table. and then started to apply the colour. You can see here as well how some of the colours kind of bled into each other because it was nice and wet, as watercolour is, of course. And so some areas had more colour in than others, and where I painted on the surface, the colours started to blend really nicely. So yeah, quite enjoyed doing that. Still, and zoom back out. So this is, I've got my vase here in front of me, so I will be drawing from that this evening. But this is the drawing that I just showed you, so you can see how much of the detail has been kind of taken out. But from where I'm sitting, I can see enough of that detail to either be able to put it back in or just to work over it. So I used quite a large brush to do this. Now, I haven't made the wash particularly tidy or anything like that, because with Helen Gottlieb's work, she creates a very painterly effect in the way she works there. So I've very loosely, you can see it how I've done it around the edges. You can see brush strokes in here and things like that. So I've done it really loosely on purpose so that I can get a little bit of that effect. I may also come back later and add some more layers of colour, like a darker version of this perhaps, over the top, then work into that. But Helen's work is really nice because we've got all of that. I'll just get rid of these. We've got all of that beautiful colour. So what I'm going to do is work into it with the Byro, then come back with the with some white acrylic paint. So white acrylic paint because it's opaque and it will sit nicely on top of the picture. And then I may go over it then with my rollerball pen so that I can get some darker details. Because even though I'm using a black Byro pen tonight, it's not as dark as a lovely rollerball pen. So if you've got both or either of those, then see how you get on. Okay. And I'll talk a little bit as we go through the lesson about using the Byro and the pens and things. But that's basically what we're aiming for this evening. Now, I did have, I'll just see if I can on. It's not much, but it's quite interesting to see. So Helen Gottlieb only posts videos on Instagram, but it's quite nice to see the process of what she does, even though it's really different to what we're doing this evening. So I'll see if I can just switch over. There we go. So these are 2 posts on Instagram. So you can see the gold leaf on the print on the left-hand side there, look. Which I've never used gold leaf. That could be interesting maybe one day to try that. And then on the other side, we've got this surface that is, I'm not sure if this is a mono print or printed from a relief printing plate. But it's quite nice because we've got these beautiful marks, which we've been looking at. And that you notice there's not tons of detail. There is enough detail, but it's not overly detailed like some of the other stuff that she's done. But she would be able to run off a few different prints or a number of prints from that and then work into it with the gold leaf. So I just found it really inspiring and I thought it'd be nice to show you. Okay, so I'm going to crack on working on this lovely little bunch of stuff over here, and then add some highlights as we go through the lesson. And I'll talk a bit more about Byros if you need me to, and as I'm doing it. I've got my photograph here so you can see the kind of thing that I've been working from. There we go. Let's post that in a minute. Okay, so Just lost everybody. Hold on. Come back to the workspace. Zoom. Let me get the right. So if anyone's got any questions about tonight, please let me know. Oh, there it is. Right, found it. I can see everyone now. Does that sound okay then? Everybody all right with that? To give that a go? Brilliant. All right. So stain your paper and start to work in or draw out, like I was explaining before, very loose drawing of the whole thing. That gives you an outline of where everything's going to go. And then you can start refining that before going into some of the detail. Okay. We'll see how we get on. Oh gosh, we've got some flowers on screen here. Megan, close-ups. You're right, Megan. Yeah, good. Okay. Super. So if you need to ask a question, don't forget I did mute everyone so that I could talk. But if you want to ask anything, please do. And I'll keep nattering on while I'm doing this. Getting a bit closer. It's also useful having this photo because I had to move everything after the lesson last week. So
Jamie, I've got acrylic background, a bit thick. Do I do acrylic into it then?
So have you? Sorry, hold on. Where are you? There you are. There you go. Hello. Can I see what you've done then?
It's a bit thick.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, you should still be able to draw on top of that. Is that acrylic or is that
acrylic? Yeah.
Yeah. That should be absolutely fine. Byro and pen will work on it. The only difference is sometimes with acrylic that it will sometimes because it's a surface that kind of holds the ink on top rather than it soak into the paper, you might find that you get a little bit of smudging if you're not careful. So just be aware of that, or put a piece of paper over the bits that you're working on, or to stop your hand rubbing. You see what I mean? Yeah. Otherwise, you should be good. What have you got to draw tonight?
Not a lot.
Not a lot.
A bit of honesty.
Yeah.
And measles. And
yeah, that's all right. That's pretty good. Oh yeah.
I can go into the garage and get some more dead bits.
Dead bits.
I'm not really inspired. I will go and get some more dead bits.
I think we may be looking at flowers next week. So there's a little note for you to look out for some flowers that you might like to draw next week. I kind of, because we're getting near the time of the year, aren't we? And not quite yet, where there's going to be daffodils and tulips and things. So I don't know if those things are available, but I'm sure there'll be plenty that you can get hold of for next week. And this might sound a bit weird, but a box as well, kind of same sort of size as the subject matter that you want to put in it. A box, yes.
Curious and curious.
Quite small though, not too big. Okay.
Not like a box that the wine comes in.
A what? Sorry.
Not like a box that the wine comes in. I'm going to the garage and look for some more dead stuff.
Dead stuff. Okay. So I can't remember if I talked at all about Byro techniques last week. I may have done. Did I talk about Byro techniques last week? I did. Okay. All right. So just to remind you then.
Happy for you to say it again.
Oh, lovely. Okay. Right. So with Byro, you can layer obviously these techniques on top of each other. A lot of people are like a bit wary of it because obviously it's permanent and things like that. But you can be very, very gentle with the pen. In other words, just stroking the surface. And if you take your time, you can get a blend that's almost as good as a pencil. So literally, if you just let the ball in the biro sort of roll gently over the paper, or even just gently scrape the surface, you can get quite absolutely beautifully fine marks from them. And so this is just hatching the area.
Are catkins allowed?
Catkins? No, can't have any catkins here.
Oh dear.
Just joking.
Put those away then.
No, just joking. So yeah, if you just gently stroke the surface, look, you can get some really beautifully fine marks on here. And create these lovely blends. I was saying the other day that there are artists that exclusively work with Byro pens and do some massive pictures just with a pen, with these pens, but they run out or get clogged out or worn out quite quickly, so they end up with hundreds of these pens that they've used. There we go. So you can get some really nice, and down here, look, I was looking at something with somebody the other day, and we've got cross hatching and then layering on top with dashes, dots, light scribbles as well. Let's try a scribble. So really gently scribbling on the surface. And obviously the more of these scribbles you do, the denser it becomes, but you can create darker tones doing this. So when we do graphite and things, artists will layer those marks, but also the graphite itself becomes richer and denser with layering. So and like I was saying about cameras and things earlier, camera on screen, it might be my setup, never really shows the fineness of what you're doing, but you can get a sense of it on here. A scribble tonal range. Well, nice. And then other things like drawing a sphere. So if you're doing something that's quite spherical, like a seed head or something like that, you can make your marks go around the shape of the ball, sphere if you like, and just change the angle slightly as you're going around. You get more cross hatching. I'm just moving the page around a little bit as I go, well, to make it easier to draw. That's another thing that a lot of people do, is just move the paper around to get a better angle. I've been doing a lot of work on computer lately, drawing, illustrating, and one of the great things about that is you can just use your fingers and turn things around without having to physically do it, which sounds lazy, but it's actually very useful. So again, I'm being very, very gentle with the pen. Haven't really added much more pressure to the pen at all, but you can see how the marks are building up to create something that gives the illusion of 3 dimensions. So drawing something like this, doing a sphere or a ball or an odd shape even, is really good practice for drawing objects or for doing still life, because it gives you those skills that you can use in drawing anything, really. You understand form and shape. All these things, of course, take practice, but can be learned. So again, I've not applied any heavier pressure. It's just literally building up layers and layers of this very soft Byro line. And then you can add shadows underneath. Give it a sense of volume or weight. We're crossing over lines now, cross hatching. So really quick one of those. And a nice thing as well to have a go at is drawing a 3D box and doing the same thing. There's lots of ways of angles you can draw. And you can practice do it, and you can do this with pencil or anything really, of course. So you can use hatching for that. Again, multiple lines overlapping each other. Build up tone. Do a darker one on this side. So now I'm applying more pressure with the pen. The other thing you can do, of course, is you can do your lines really close together and further apart, which can also be used to create tone and depth in the shading. So, a nice way to create sense of form again. And then we could add further shadows and details on the shading on the edges of the box by just layering some more tones like that. Do the same on this side. And then I didn't do too much on this, but shadow. You see here how the lines further apart and then much closer together as we approach the box. Pen stopping. So I don't know if I said this last week as well, but when you're using a biro or a rollable pen, the other thing to remember is that they do clog up. So if you've used loads and loads of pencil, be prepared if you're going over with pen for them to stop working. So the thing to do is just clean them off by scribbling somewhere and getting it out, basically. And you should be okay. But they'll clog up again, of course. So just be aware of that when you work them. If you put lots of pencil on. Getting really hot in here.
Jamie, I'm a bit thick, but I've just drawn this out in pencil. Do I now do it all in Byro?
That's right. Yeah.
Right.
Or if you've got one of those rollables, you could do that.
That. Horrible.
Yeah.
You know the vase?
Yeah. Yeah, I've started doing it here.
I'm a bit. This is new territories.
Is it? I thought you would have done this before, actually. So I probably won't finish all of this. So what I'll do tonight is I will do some of it, and then I'll start putting the white paint on so that everyone gets to see how that works.
So will the white paint affect the black? Or I think you said it might.
It shouldn't do. It might do with a rollerball, because the rollerballs are not waterproof as much as the Byros.
Right.
Yeah. So you need to be aware of that. But you know, if you add a load of water, then you might have a problem there.
Right.
Did I show everyone that last week? Adding water to a rollerball? No, to a rollerball pen. I'll show you now if you like.
Well, please do, because mine's all went, didn't it, last week? Mine's all smudged and everything.
Oh, is it? Did you add the water over the... Yeah, did you mention that as well? I can't remember.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, so look, here's a circle.
Yeah.
And if I get my little brush and some water, look, zoom in a bit more. I don't know how much close. That's as close as I can get there. But, so that's just one line, look. And this is a rollerball. But look, it turns into watered down ink. So you can use that
Right, yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
But more for a mono sort of picture, which means just one colour.
Yeah.
Unless you've got loads of coloured pens, of course. So yeah. Whereas with Byro, it doesn't tend to do that. You can just work over the top, and it doesn't really. It does a bit, but not like the rollerball ink. Yeah. All right. Okay, so yeah, so I've talked a little bit about this is me just talking about measuring and drawing vases and how to do ellipses and so forth. You can see I'm just doing a very quick drawing of the vase that I've got in my photograph just here. The thing to do is to make sure you keep practicing ellipses. I remember when I was at college and stuff, they used to get us to practice loads and loads of ellipses. But if you go for more of a free sort of loose approach where you're constantly correcting the shape of the ellipses, you'll find that you improve, obviously with lots of practice and so forth. So you'll see me now working over the whole of the drawing with the Byro, but I do think that I stop at different points in order to start exploring the white as well, and then towards the end of the video I decided that it'd be quite good to add some white around the background as well in the negative spaces of the vase too. I do actually work a little bit more on this much later on too. That was me just talking about some work that I'm doing at the moment as well. And you can see I've zoomed in order to just talk about how to go about drawing something with all of this detail in. So these, I think they're bulrushes or something like that, but using these kind of rhythmical lines that overlap each other, and again building up layers of the mark making to create the texture as well as the tone in the picture too. So carrying on with the old poppy seeds and things, just here. And I did actually get, I got to this point where I decided that let's just go for it with adding in some white paint, and I did that in a number of places before going back in with pen, because as you know, it's really good, this stuff, acrylic, because it'll dry really quickly, which allows me to then go back into the detail with the pen to add some finer lines and so forth. Here we were just discussing how you would go about doing this kind of really fluffy seed head kind of thing, or stem just here. So again, I'm just building up some white, and it works particularly well over this yellowy brown background that I've got here. It looks more golden on here than it does in real life. And then we're just very quickly adding in some white. It just gives you something to work over as well, and don't forget you can go back in with the white, or you can work in with pen, then go back over it again. So there's lots of opportunities to have a little bit of a play with the lights, highlights and the shadows in this little very quick display that I made. So all I did with this is I propped up, to photograph this image, I just propped it up on some white paper and propped up a sketchbook behind it and used my camera to photograph it. So it's quite nice to have that white background without the distractions as well. So it's very easy to do these days on cameras, of course, smartphone cameras and what have you. So when I often go for these drawings, what I also do is I just basically I'm looking constantly at the objects, but I'm having a little bit of fun with it as well. So I'm getting the feel for the shapes and things that I can see in front of me in the objects, and it reminded me actually that, you know, drawing things from real life and looking at them really closely, it's so much fun. You really learn so much more than you would if you're looking at kind of a photograph or whatever, because you can pick them up, you can take them apart, you can even smell them if you wanted to, but it certainly gives you a really lovely idea, and it helps with the mark making and things too, that you can look much more closely and much more in detail, perhaps a camera does. You can focus in on certain things, all from your eyes rather than from a lens of a camera. So I do recommend looking at real things, and we'll be doing a bit more of that next week too. I don't get as far with the vase this evening, but I do actually go back and draw the vase a lot more on the Friday when I do the live class as well, whilst everyone's drawing away. But if you look on the Facebook group, there's some really, really good pieces of work where people have spent quite a bit of time observing and building up layers. Some people have used watercolours as well. Some people have used the acrylic paints, full colour ones, and I haven't even got to that yet. So yeah, it's just great to see. And then obviously you can see there a few highlights in the teasel and some highlights on the seed heads at the top. And here I was started just to think about the curved nature of the vase, of course. So doing curvy brush strokes, as you can see. And then a lot later on the Friday, I did work a lot into the shadows of these objects, but you can see the shadows appearing, or the shadows that have been cast of the stems on the side of the vase there as well. Really good stuff. Enjoyable to do. One of the things about filming this is, of course, the Byro pen is reflective when it's on the surface, so you do get this kind of reddish tinge that you can see on that poppy seed head at the top there. But you get the idea. So, well, I hope you've enjoyed watching this evening's lesson, and we'll catch up again next week, where I'll show what I've done with this, and we'll be looking at tulips in enclosed spaces. The Dutch masters painted loads of tulips in the 1650s. Okay, have a lovely evening, and I'll see you very soon.